Good morning, Indonesia, with Sam Stewart and Trey O'Reilly.
Thanks for joining us this morning. Today, our topic of discussion is corruption and crony capitalism within Indonesia.
Indonesia is a developing nation that has suffered through many years of repressive rule, specifically under that of President Muhammad Suharto, who served for 31 years. And even before that, the country was ruled by the Dutch and Japanese.
Through a system his political opponents describe as KKN, an Indonesian acronym for corruption, collusion, and nepotism, Suharto embezzled $35 billion from his country. Suharto tapped into Indonesia's natural resources, set up yayasans, which are fake charities, and forced banks and other financial institutions to donate money to these artificial foundations.
Even after Suharto's regime was toppled, Indonesia continued to struggle with corruption. In fact, studies show that new democracies often face this problem, especially if they're formed after a repressive regime.
This is known as the bandit theory. It highlights how if corrupt officials feel they have a lot of time to steal money, they will cause less harm than democratic officials who only remain in power for short periods of time.
Corrupt democratic officials will engage in massively corrupt practices because they only have a short time to abuse their power. Such officials are otherwise called roving bandits. Whereas a leader in charge of a corrupt regime, such as Suharto, know that they will remain in power for a long period of time, leading their corrupt practices to be less severe than those who serve for shorter terms. These types of leaders are called stationary bandits.
One thing that has amplified corruption in Indonesia is decentralization. Decentralization is moving the government away from a centralized entity into local and regional authorities. Such a power shift was needed in Indonesia, considering the nation has over 6,000 inhabited islands. Therefore, over 500 officials hold some type of political power. However, a dangerous side effect of this process has been a spread of corruption.
Muhammad Nazaruddin, the former treasurer under Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono's presidency, was recently arrested for his involvement in a scandal revolving around contracts for athletes' dormitories. This arrest has further damaged the reputation of the president's zero-tolerance for corruption policy. Even 13 years after Suharto's rule came to an end, corruption is still rampant in Indonesian politics. Indonesia is combating corruption in the country, however. The Indonesian Corruption Eradication Committee, otherwise known as the KPK, intends to fight corruption throughout the entire country.
We'll be right back after these messages with more on corruption in Indonesia, particularly in the military and the police. We also have one student's story of how a policeman innocently pulled him over outside a university looking for a bribe.
Have you ever had a day where you were just craving some chocolate but could not find any that would satisfy your hunger? Well then, you have never tried Cypher's chocolate, which is some of the best in the world. In a double-blind study, it was referred 2-to-1 over Hershey's chocolate bar. Celebrities think it is some of the best chocolate in the world.
I wish I could make chocolate that tastes as good as Cypher's.
So if one wants to satisfy that chocolate craving, buy some Cypher's chocolate now.
Hi, I'm Trey O'Reilly from Good Morning Indonesia, and I'm here to speak out against corruption in our country. Here at Good Morning Indonesia, we have tried to expose corruption in our country. That's why we endorse the KPK and their fight to stop corruption in our country. By fighting corruption, we are not only helping Indonesia today, we are helping it for generations to come. So join us and support the KPK because Indonesia deserves better.
The military, under the rule of President Suharto, was notoriously brutal and corrupt. The military owned businesses and land and was kept separate from rule under the central government.
However, President Yudhoyono has tried to stop the military's business involvement. Therefore, in 2004, a law was passed banning soldiers' involvement in business measures. But, in addition to this law taking 5 years to be enforced, the military still manages to receive money from private business.
The military manages this through leasing land to private companies and then charging these companies for security. In addition, the military holds stakes in these companies. This is important because if the military receives enough money from private businesses, it no longer becomes dependent on civil authorities, meaning that it could separate if it chose to. Much like in the military, corruption is evident throughout the police. Police expect bribes and other handouts after pulling people over. Often in these instances, there has been no traffic violation.
The police's justification for taking these bribes is that their state budget does not cover their operating costs. Island Coffee is Indonesia's best island coffee around. It is the #1 coffee in Indonesia. Its smooth mocha taste and mystical aroma has made it well known across the globe. It's made a big impact on celebrities in Indonesia like Muhammad Ali.
I really enjoy island coffee. Helps me get through that tough day.
And of course, Island Coffee's biggest supporter, Mr. Gilboy.
Oh man, I cannot even begin to tell you how much of an improvement my day has become with the help of this coffee. I needed to get through a hard day of teaching kids about talking to the text.
Hello. Here in Good Morning Indonesia, we have Ahmed, an Indonesian student who is here to tell us a story about how he was stopped by police and forced to pay a bribe. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 20 years old and I go to the State Islamic Institute.
So tell us what happened the night you were pulled over by the police.
Well, I was going the speed limit. I was driving home from the university, and the police pulled me over saying I was speeding. But I know I wasn't because I did not want to be pulled over for any infractions. And he forced me to pay a bribe because I could not pay the full price of a ticket.
Was the money you paid for this bribe important to you?
Yes it was, because I need this money to pay my rent. Now I have to live with my parents who live 2 hours away.
Would you say that this kind of thing happens often?
I would, because a lot of my friends talk about how they get pulled over for doing nothing wrong, and it just shows that corruption is still in Indonesia.
What do you think this really says about Indonesia?
Well, I was only a kid when Suharto was in power, but they talk of him stealing billions of dollars, and it shows that even though he's out of power now, corruption is still going on in Indonesia. The very people we trust to keep our country safe are stealing money from us.
What do you think Indonesia should do to stop this kind of corruption from happening?
We need to enforce the right to vote and to elect people that can stop corruption.
That's an excellent point, Ahmed. The right to vote, especially in a new democracy like ours, is absolutely essential for our growth as a nation. Just some food for thought.
To the editor, I understand that corruption has been, and still is, very prominent in Indonesia. Even though President Yudhoyono has been trying to stem the amount of corruption occurring, it has been to no avail. Corruption is still widespread throughout Indonesia. As a citizen of Indonesia, I am very worried about the state of our country. I have to work many hours every week, and I need my hard-earned money to support my family. Because our government and officers are often too concerned with our money, it makes it that much harder to raise my family. I would like to know what I can do to help raise our country out of this corrupt state. We need citizens to put a stop to corruption because we can no longer trust our government. Sincerely, Sanjay.
Dear Sanjay, the problems you have stated are indeed very disturbing, and you are right when you said that citizens need to put a stop to this. That is why groups have been formed such as the KPK, the Corruption Eradication Committee. You can join groups such as this, or you can form your own. Also, you cannot stand by idly if you see corruption occurring. Report seeing corruption to the KPK. Many people have created Facebook posts, Twitter feeds, and even holidays to protest corruption. On December 9th every year, people gather to protest and raise awareness of corruption. You might want to look into participating in one of these activities to help others see corruption as you do, and to take steps to stop it.
Indonesia has been facing the issue of corruption ever since it has gained independence.
Though there has been improvement in Indonesia, the problem of corruption is still in existence.
Corruption remains rampant throughout the military, police, and politics.
Thanks for joining us here today.
And from all of us here at Good Morning Indonesia, have a great day.
And remember,
You stay classy, Southeast Asia.